Okay guys, I want you to imagine this. It's 2009, just got home from school, turn on that Xbox 360, pop in that MW2. First map, terminal. Put on your headset, go into game chat. It's a Friday and you got all the time in the world. Picture it. The perfect lobbies, the chats, the fun you have with your friends.
Stupid!
Humiliation.
The fuck is that?
Oh,
Kidding me?
baby, it's
Are you seriously fucking kidding me,
Oh,
kid?
yeah!
Nah, but seriously guys, today I'm bringing you guys another analysis video on something that I thought would be fun to talk about, on what happened to good video games. To me, recently, a lot of these new games haven't packed as much oomph as the older games back in the day, such as MW2 or Black Ops 2, or you could even pop in an old Grand Theft Auto 4, the original Red Dead Redemption, the Uncharted series, and so on. So I figured, hey, since a lot of these companies aren't really getting the message, why don't I put it out there? Cue the music. Developers have recently had the mindset of, hey, let's put out an unfinished and unpolished game and slap $60 right on top of that and make gamers think it's a full game. It's to the point where these new games are just glorified betas in disguise to lure gamers into buying them and essentially testing the game before its actual full release. This is mainly due to a new practice that's picked up a trend in the gaming industry known as games as a service. By definition, this means games as a service represents providing video games or game content on a continuing revenue model similar to software as a service. Games as a service are ways to monetize video games either after their initial sale or to support a free-to-play model. Now, many companies for some reason feel like this is the best way to put out new games, when in fact it actually makes these new games worse and makes players feel like they're cheated out of their money and got an incomplete game. A very recent offender of this would be BioWare's current trash heap, Anthem. Now, I don't want to go fully into the story of why this game is so trash right now, but I'm going to break it down into a few points. One reason, and the main reason, is the game's poor management during its development. The game started pre-production all the way back in 2012. Yeah, 2012. So you would think, oh, so they were just working on the game for 7 years and it came out like this? Oh man, if only you guys knew. Pre-production is the stage in the process where they're essentially making concept art and going back and forth about early ideas for the game. And this lasted until 2018. So really think about that. The game was in pre-production from 2012 to 2018, and they only had one mission completed by 2018. Which means that they pretty much made this game in 1 year. And I'll give it to them. To put that much out in 1 year is actually a pretty amazing feat for a developer, no matter who you are. Even though the game's still trash. But anyway, during that process, developers were also essentially not even able to see what they were making. They were making assets for the game and just sending them off and not knowing what type of game they were making. Sure, there were official like game tests and things like that, but they weren't totally sure what they were making. It wasn't until 2017 at E3 that developers found out what they were actually making. Remember that E3 2017 gameplay trailer that we saw? Yeah, that was fake. The game was nowhere near ready when it was shown off at E3 2017. That was just something put together last minute to get fans hyped for this incomplete game. It was then that developers realized, oh, that's the game we're making. Wait. Ah, crap. That's the game we're making? This is a looter shooter? Yeah, it pretty much went like that. The other problems stem from communication problems. BioWare has 3 separate teams that were put to work together on this game. According to interviews on Kotaku, people were being ignored, ideas completely thrown away, and it was just all a really bad experience for the development team. You ever notice when an update comes out a little while after the game releases and you catch yourself saying, wow, this should have been in the game since the beginning? Or even worse cases, this happens when a paid DLC gets released for the game. A very good example of this would be Destiny, and more specifically, Destiny 2. The first Destiny was met with a very mixed response. On one hand, there were those who were fully into the gameplay and loot, whereas the other side felt the game needed more, such as an enticing story mode, an easier and more manageable gameplay system with the skill tree, and a more customizable loadout and character design. Then a year after Destiny's release came the Taken King DLC, which brought all of that and more to the game. It even brought new fans to the game itself, and to Bungie it was a complete success. 2 years after that DLC, we got Destiny 2, which many Destiny fans felt like the game started off taking a few steps backwards rather than forwards ahead of vanilla Destiny. Destiny fans felt like they had dumbed down the skill trees to make it easier for non-veteran players, and other basic features like stack deletion of shaders or materials didn't come until later updates. The developers even took out Trials, which was the game's main competitive PvP mode, because they felt like it didn't live up to what they had envisioned. The first time Trials was met with huge success and praise for it being a very well done competitive PvP, they added more and more to it as Destiny 1 grew on. But when it came to Destiny 2, it seemed like it had started behind when Trials first started. Then a year later, just like its predecessor, came the Forsaken DLC, which made players feel like it was a little bit too grindy. The game also suffered from Activision's involvement as the publisher for the game by putting microtransactions in the game in the form of Eververse, which caused massive problems in the game and the community. Which brings me to my next point that deals with these cash grab schemes that companies implement into their games. Activision is the prime example of this type of publisher. They are part of the reason why the Call of Duty franchise is slowly going downhill. This past year, COD was dethroned as the top-selling game after doing it many years in a row by a far superior game in the form of Lil Nas X and Billy Ray Cyrus Cowboys and Gucci, I mean, Red Dead Redemption 2. Speaking of Rockstar, they for some reason are still supporting their almost 6-year-old game and not providing players with 100% support and updates on their new one. Wanna know why? Those shark cards are still bringing Rockstar that real cheddar. Why do you think every time new GTA Online updates come out, you can't even afford to buy one new car? Or a base? At first they were doing this to test the waters and see just how much players were willing to go in paying for shark cards for content in the game. Eventually, they got the data they needed and saw that players had no problem going through this with Rockstar, so they decided to make it their mission to increase prices on cars, apartments, bases, etc. And they lowered pay on certain missions and made sure to patch exploits, which I can understand of course, but instead of adding content that players had been asking for since the beginning, like bigger and better heists or a story mode DLC, which people would be willing to pay for, they're making players pay for stuff that should already be available to them without having to go the extra mile and pay for in-game currency. Which I don't get with these new companies. I'm paying for a $60 game. I'm not paying for a $60 game that has most of its content locked by extra purchases I have to make within the game. That's not the point of making a video game. So instead of adding all of this, they're almost forcing players to buy the shark cards in order to get the new shiny and enticing flying cars or jetpacks or submarine vehicles. Like who actually needs this? At this point, it's not Grand Theft Auto anymore. What happened to the gang rivalries, the heists? Instead, we're over here acting like Fast and Furious, moving away from street racing to being Mission Impossible. Another cash grab recently was the much anticipated anime powerhouse called Jump Force. I don't think anyone at Bandai had any idea what they were doing when they made this game. Like, characters were very unbalanced. Rukia, Killua, Gaara. And if you don't agree with me, I just want all of you to think of a match you had where somebody had Rukia as a support. Now close your eyes. Yeah, that just triggered like all of you, didn't it? It triggered me just saying that. Like, PTSD. It was World War II just went off in my head. Anyway, another problem was the fighting. Like, why can't you punish an ult? You're only left with blocking, or if you time it right, getting out of the way. And even then, you have to time that right. Ults go through each other instead of clashing with each other, which would only make sense. Like Goku or Vegeta throwing a Kamehameha or a Gallic Gun at each other, why do they go through each other? One match I saw Luffy, his ult going through Goku's Spirit Bomb. He flew through with his little balloon man, 4th gear mode. 4th gear hockey, don't come at me, you anime lovers. He went through the Spirit Bomb and attacked Goku midair. How does that happen? That wouldn't happen. And don't even get me started with this roster. Kaguya and Boruto on the Naruto roster? You mean to tell me, okay, you put Kaguya in before Pain? What are you smoking? And then you put Boruto, who's not a part of the Naruto story. He's got his own story. If you want to put Boruto in the game, give him his own roster. Put him in his own side. Don't put him as part of the Naruto roster. What? And don't even get me started about this DLC. Someone in that meeting room had to line up some cocaine and just said, okay, we need to come up with a character to add to Hunter x Hunter. Let's see, what about Kite, sir? He was a fan favorite character that everyone would love to be in the game. No, I've got it. We'll put, what's her name? Bisky. Yeah, she's cool. What about her? She bulks up, right? But, sir, Bisky really doesn't have any other moves besides that, and we already have All Might. It's fine. We can add, this way, we can add another female character to the roster, add diversity to the cast. But, sir, we have great characters at our disposal, like Netero or the king himself, Meruem, who actually may have movesets. And if you really wanted a female character, why don't you put Killua's butler or the vacuum chick from the Phantom Troop?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Get the f*** out my office and go give me my biscuit. The point I'm trying to prove here with Jump Force is that instead of actually trying to make a good anime fighting game and enticing people who are fans of the anime characters to buy their game, they in fact did it in the reverse. This was just a cash grab scheme to get players to buy Jump Force and entice them to watch the anime that was in the game. That to me seems very backwards and a very bad plan and strategy when making a game. Your number one ideal for making a game should be if players enjoy it. And a lot of these companies nowadays don't seem to have that mindset, and it's very bad. Lastly, I want to talk about those who possibly have the most effect on gaming. And who would that be? Well, it's actually the gamers. Now before I get into this, I just want to say, please don't come for my head. I've been a gamer since the PlayStation 2 era. So the comments I'm making are just from my perspective of being in the gaming community and just wanting games to be better. Also remember, I do know how to find IP addresses, so try me if you want to, I will find where you live. Firstly, gamers can affect the development of a game to its core and change the way the game looks and feels. With fan feedback, developers take this into consideration when supporting their games. Now this isn't necessarily a bad idea, but when gamers start to let themselves become subjects of the developers' unknown game testing through small things like buyable currencies or loot boxes, is when things get really bad for the game. Going back to Anthem, they had sold an item at one point in the in-game store for an insane amount of currency that was already a pain to obtain inside of the game. A while after many complaints from the community, the developers finally took it down from the store. However, I believe that they did this because they got the data that they needed from the gamers. They saw that people obviously didn't like the fact that they had to spend so much on currency that they could barely obtain anyway inside of the game for an item that didn't seem like it was worth that much money. Loot boxes are all over the place nowadays in games like Call of Duty, when I think they really shouldn't be. Guys, please stop supporting shady practices like this, because what the developers are taking from this is that gamers are okay with paying $60 for a game that's halfway, and sometimes even less than that, done, that was mostly focused in making cosmetic items to just lock behind loot boxes, leaving very little thought put into the actual game. I've heard better ideas for games come out of the mouths of gamers than the ones put out by these million-dollar companies. Now, the gaming community has branched off and grown over the years into different factions. You have the Xbox side, those on PlayStation, Team Nintendo, PC gamers, and most important of all, the mobile gamers master race. We have also had great games come out recently, like PS4's Spider-Man or Red Dead Redemption 2, or even my favorite, the Xbox exclusive Sunset Overdrive, which I'm still waiting for Microsoft and Insomniac to make a sequel to. Please? Anyways, guys, we need to come together as a whole community and demand more from these companies who are asking for our money. We need an era as great as the 360 and PS3 era of gaming. We want games that we'll come back to and constantly have fun to, not games that we'll play once and get tired of it within the first 24 hours. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.